Hi, so
There, Ed's tripping over that
what
again.
did I do that? What?
All we need is a splitting plan. It is on the dot.
Six, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance. I, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I want to welcome you all here today. Is there anyone here that has a question, a concern, or an issue they'd like to present to this board? It is not on tonight's agenda. Yes, please.
Darlene Bright, I own a home on 101 Elmsburg Road of Janesville rental. As the time is approaching, there's more and more people posting garage sales on there. So my question to you, Ed, is there any way I can contact, if that's a county road or DOT, to make them put a sign which will say, do not post sign or obstruction, because they're standing in front of my house looking up and the light is green instead of going. So that's what I want to ask you about, the signage for that. And I told the girl that's having the same problem at film, you can't just put signs up. You have to go to the board and get that approved or call the DOT of that. You gotta find a county road, a town road, and go from there. So that's wrong.
Yeah, okay. We'll look into that.
Okay, you looking into that?
Yeah, we reach out to county DOT.
Right, okay, and get information on that. Secondly, I wanted to ask you about, February, Chris Lawton said we were gonna get some new trash bins.
Yes.
But when I try to call her, it's on email, so I don't know how to contact her. What are we doing with the trash bins?
What's gonna happen in DeWitt is we're gonna send everybody a sticker.
Okay,
As many stickers as they want. Because we have a complicated trash program. We actually have an off curb level, 85 gallon level, and unlimited. And then we have all of those off curb. So we'll have a single container. So we have 6 different levels. of Trash. And if we went where the other towns are going and with a trash container and recycling container that a truck can pick up. Hundreds, if not thousands of our residents wouldn't be able to keep the current services that they have. For example, we have a houses in some of our lower trash levels, where someone has a single bag service level and they just put the bag outside their side door, or they leave it on their front porch. Well, trucks that require the pickup and not a person to come put the trash in place can't come to the side door or the porch and pick up the bag. And so we'd have to go back to one of those large containers that the truck picks up. So Okra has abandoned the blue bin system as well. And so we've been studying what it would take to go to a unified container system. And we're not going to do that. We're going to let people put their recycling, whatever closed container they wish. But in order for the hauler to distinguish the difference between trash and recycling, we're going to go to a sticker system. So we haven't done that yet, but we're gonna. In fact, I haven't even presented that to the board yet. So this is all preface to what's coming.
oh, okay, because Chris said we were getting the new containers like they do in Syracuse, but she said she wasn't sure when we were going to.
We're not gonna get this because those are required to have a truck pick them up.
Oh,
And
okay,
we have a number of folks that have a person come in either into their home
Mhm.
and plug into their code into their garage and go and get the bag out. Trash out, the containers out, and then we have other locations.
so no, we're not doing that.
So our off curb service would be severely damaged if we were to go to a single container by each vehicle. And that puts limits to the workers too. Now I mean, this is things here. Not compatible with our.
Okay, and back to what you were saying about the DOT, are you gonna contact them directly and express the
I'll send it an email to
to the DOT?
the, yeah,
And then they respond to you, then come out and do a study or what?
well, you're gonna want restrictions of the signs, right?
Correct,
You're gonna want some kind of posting.
correct.
Just, we also have that request in where you want your driveway, the setback,
Correct.
not that park. So I'm just gonna add that to that study. The
Okay.
county DOT will act on it. how
Or the
they-
county DOT.
Yeah, they'll act on it however they see fit.
How they see fit, but you'll just put in a request for it tomorrow, and then maybe 2, 3 weeks. I'll get, here's something from the.
I'll press them, but I don't know when I'll be back from you.
Okay, and then the third thing I was gonna ask you about, you wasn't here when I had the last meeting about the $872 bill I got for my insurance when I told you I failed. March the 16th, side. And there,
Yeah, I just.
he wasn't here, but nonetheless, I made Matt take a copy of it, and he suggested I take you guys to small claims court for the 817. And I told him that's not the way I would want to resolve a concern. So he said he's gonna look into it, I guess, talk to you about the bill.
He's away, his brother's getting married in California. I haven't talked.
Oh, you haven't talked to him?
I haven't talked to him.
Okay, well, I
Not at the last meeting and I haven't
Yeah.
talked to him in over a week.
okay,
So I haven't heard anything about this issue.
okay, but I still got the bill, so should I be making a copy of giving it to you and you look over one of the boards? I mean, how protocol?
Terry, you were here at the last meeting?
Yes,
Yeah, Matt, I thought Matt said he was gonna call you.
he didn't know, he told me to sue y'all in small claims
No,
court.
at the meeting, he said, let's talk.
He told you he would talk to you if you wanted to call him, and he
Yeah,
said.
but prior to that, he said the best revenue was.
He told you had that avenue, and
Yes.
but you could call him and talk to him about it.
Well,
He accepted
This has been
you.
on the agenda for the past 2 months, Chase.
You haven't called him, right?
Why would I call
That's what he said. I'm just saying, that's what Matt said. He said if you wanted to call him, you could call
him?
him.
Yeah, I wanted to call him, but prior to that, he mentioned the part about taking you guys for small claims.
I'll take a copy of the bill just so I know what.
That's what I'm saying to you.
Yeah, I'm just reminding you.
Yeah,
You know, it's my general impression that it's not an issue that the town would take up.
okay,
But I'll look at it. I'll
You'll
look
look
at
at
it, yeah.
okay,
Deductibles on transport.
excuse me?
Is this an ambulance
Yes,
transport?
yeah.
Yeah, so this is the deductible. Your insurance picked up. It's one of them.
I think the bill was like 1,300, but I work at FedEx, so FedEx covered $500 or $600 and then left me with the bill for 817. So yeah,
Yeah, that's one of my, yeah. We can talk off.
we'll talk. Okay,
This is one of my pet peeves with the fact that our fire department does expense.
oh, okay,
If our fire department transport, we can set up a different system that helps you in this particular instance. What happens right now is you pay the tax bill to have emergency response show up.
correct,
And then the fire department does a great job showing up at 10,
yes,
but then they call AMR
yes,
and they transport you and that comes off of your insurance.
correct,
And that's an issue that the town can't help.
okay,
In the future, we put a system in place that the fire department,
okay,
we can put a system. in place
that's something in place,
that help.
okay. All right, so then all that being said and done, do you want me to pay the 817 or what do you want me to do?
That's probably what. That's my guess is what's coming. I haven't talked to Manny. yet.
But you'll look into it.
Yes.
And get back to me, okay, that's fair enough.
Did you have a copy of this?
I gave Matt one, but somebody gotta make a copy, that's my original from FedEx.
Matt's got one.
He gave one to Matt.
Yeah.
You take it, keep your original.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other issues, any other persons that want to make a statement? Board is not on today's agenda. Okay. All right, I'm gonna jump right in. We scheduled a public information meeting on assessments. And basically, I just wanted to point out, because I'm not quite sure that a number of the board has a good understanding of an equalization rate. Kate, can you throw up?
Yep, I've got it.
I don't have a very lengthy slide presentation, but I did put together some numbers here that I'd like to see. All right. Pardon me? Yeah, you can do it. I'll let you know. All right, but anyways, the town's tax rate, just like all municipalities and school districts, is based on its budget, right? Should the town's overall property tax assessment increase? So these full numbers, these are all arbitrary and theoretical numbers.
Can you just talk a little louder?
Sure, but should the town's tax rate go up 10%?
No,
Can't hear?
You can't hear me?
a little louder.
Okay, should the town's tax rate go up 10% across the board, and the town's budget goes up 2%, in effect, when you get your tax bill from the town, it should be a 2% increase because the tax rate's based solely on our budget. Now, what the state has put in place is called an equalization rate. The equalization rate is defined as the relationship of a property's assessed value to its full value. An example is if a property is assessed at 80% of its full value, the state is going to apply an equalization rate of 80% or a 0.8 to that municipality. So again, the ER is set by the state. The purpose of an ER or an equalization rate is to ensure equitable distribution of property taxes across the school, the county, and the town tax burdens. DeWitt's maintained 100% of its assessed valuation since 1996. DeWitt and a few other towns have 100% equalization rate, and I'm going to go to the county tax bill. For every dollar that you pay in a property tax bill, 50% of it roughly, no matter where you live in Onondaga County, is your school district cost. 35 cents or 35% of it roughly across Onondaga County is your county tax. 15% of it is your local municipality. Typically in the town of DeWitt, that's roughly the amount of taxes you pay to us. We send you the bills, but 85% of your taxes go to a school district or a county. Maintaining 100% property tax assessment maintains fairness, maintains equitability. It means your wealthy properties or homes that are worth the most, gonna pay the most. And those that are worth less or little will pay the least. Go to the next slide, please. This is Onondaga County's towns and their assessed valuations with the equalization rate applied to it. All right, so if you look, there's several towns, Lysander, Manlius, Salina, Tully, Van Buren. This is probably 2022's numbers. They all have 100% assessment. But if you go to some of the other towns, and I'm going to use Lafayette as an example, because the JD School District crosses into the town of Lafayette. And I know my parents live in the town of Lafayette, and they pay a much higher tax rate to the JD schools, and I'll explain why here. So in the three towns that I'm going to show, Clay has an equalization rate of 3 1/3%. DeWitt has the 100% equalization rate, and Lafayette has the 75%. If you look at our county tax rate, when you get your county tax bill, it's one of the lowest in Onondaga County. About $4.3 per thousand is what those in DeWitt, towns of Manlius, Van Buren, Tully, Salina that have the 100%. So their tax rate is lower than those. Clay pays $131 per every thousand that their house is assessed for to the county. Lafayette pays $5.88 or 89 cents to Onondaga County for every thousand assessed on their tax bill. So go to the next slide. So what I'm looking at here, can you drop the percentage so we get all the, yeah, get all that, I'll get all that on the slide.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's good. Right there's good. A single family home. If the worth of that house is $100,000. And you have an equalization rate of 100%. Then you're gonna pay that lower tax. In the case of Lafayette, on your county tax, they have an equalization rate of 75%. And so when you get your tax bill from the town of Lafayette and your house is assessed at a lower value, it'll be assessed at $75,000 and you say, oh, great, my assessment is low. But your tax bill is gonna go up because the state of New York's gonna set that equalization rate. And they recognize that every house in the town of Lafayette is on average 25% less than its assessment is 25% or actually 33% lower than it should be. So when we look at Lafayette, an equalization rate compared to the town of DeWitt, their tax rate is 34% higher. When the county tax bills go to a resident with $100,000 house value in Lafayette or set at $75,000 on their books, they get a tax bill from the county of $441 and change. The individual that has $100,000 assessed in the town of DeWitt gets $439. So all you're really doing when you don't raise your assessments is hiding the fact that the school district and the county are gonna find you anyways. They're gonna set, the state of New York assigns that equalization rate and they do it as the assignment based on sales. Clay has an equalization rate of almost 3,000 times higher. In a percentage form, it's 30 times greater than the town of DeWitt. And the state of New York knows that. They know what houses are selling for in the town of Clay, and they assign the equalization rate to them. And in the end, they're paying the same amount of money as a resident in DeWitt and a resident in Manlius and any resident that has 100% assigned. What the 100% does, go to the next slide. And I looked, I couldn't find historical data. But what the equalization rate does is it keeps just what it's saying. It's assigned to equalize the tax rate across municipalities. Right? The state of New York recognizes the fact that some municipalities don't raise assessments, others keep current with the 100%. And those that don't do it, we've been current since 1996. What happens in the long run when you don't maintain your assessments is the balance gets out of whack. Some of your lower end neighborhoods and the people that can afford it the least can end up paying a higher proportion of taxes than those in the higher end neighborhoods. There's a breakdown between residential and commercial properties, and sometimes the residents can end up supporting the commercial or the commercial can support the residents. And the only way to stay current with those numbers is to stay in the 100% range. So anyways, I did try to find DeWitt's numbers since 1960, but I got a little bit of a theory about this too. So go to the next slide. This is the the home price index, and it's based on the percentage of sales of home prices. It's not the exact same thing as home price, but it is. And this is the United States. And the line in the middle is the median income. The median is 50% of people are above and 50% of the homes are below. But what this shows is some tremendous variability throughout the country. But in general, since 1999 or since the year 2000, most of the homes in the United States have increased in value by 200%. If you look at the range, the red is below and the red is zero. When you're hanging flat at the bottom of this chart, your property hasn't increased in value. And that's close to where Syracuse has been, or central New York, and where the rest of the country. Go to the next slide. This is New York State. It compares Syracuse, central New York. But if you look at the percentage increase in a 20-year window, it's relatively flat, where the other markets have increased in value up to 200%. In many cases, in that 20-year window, Syracuse has hung around 60-50%. Again, this is the median household price index in central New York. It goes all the way back to 1960. Or, excuse me, this was 80. I tried to get other data. And it's relatively flat. Now, since the year 2017-18, it's increased in as much a 5-year window as it did in a 30 or 40-year window before that. So housing price index has jumped in the last 5 to 7 years, equivalent to what it's done in 40, 50 years prior. Next slide. This is the US market. This is from 1960 to 2020, and this is the median sale price of houses throughout. It's not uncommon in other markets for people to double, triple, and quadruple the investment they've had on their home. You buy a house in central New York, and you bought it 20, 30 years ago, and if you made $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 in equity on that home, you were probably fortunate. That's my last one. Okay, so my point is that housing markets are starting to jump. And it's up to your municipality, it's up to your school districts, it's up to control their budgets. When we say our budget goes up 2%, we've kept it under 2% for 15 years. We had a problem with COVID and it went up 4%, or a little under 4% last year. But we're committed to going back to 2% next year. But the way that I would view this, or I'm viewing it, is you're now building equity in your property. Most people's homes, are their single most important investment. And if your value of your home doesn't increase, then neither is your estate.
But your taxes go up. We can't afford taxes. We can't afford anything.
Yeah.
What is this based on? It's,
This, again,
you're just saying, we bought our home 30 years ago. And you're saying my home now is going to be 20 times higher in its taxes. It doesn't make any sense.
it's worth more today than it was.
Based on
5 to
what?
7 years.
Based on what?
Based on household sales.
Where did you get this information from? Who was the contributing?
Right here, Fred, this is the bank, the Federal Reserve Index.
That's federal.
Yeah.
So the Federal Reserve,
That's-
bankers are telling you the bankers are telling you
No,
what
bankers are telling you what houses are selling.
what houses they're selling for, or whether it's an inflated market or not. Okay, so this is all federal information, correct?
Most of it's all banking and federal.
And that's the handwritten thing there, that was just you,
That's my calculation.
that's your calculation.
But that's verifiable by the county office. I've worked with Don Weber at Onondaga County Tax and
No, because I'd like to take this information, if you can publish it online so I can print it out, I'm gonna send it to, thank you, I'm gonna send it to an economist and have him look at it for the next time.
there's all sorts of information that I provided this board that I'll put online too, that explains an equalization rate. But if you go in to New York State and look up an equalization rate, you'll find a homeowner's explanation of the equalization rate. And there's all sorts of information that explains why that rate keeps things equitable.
So how do we pull our budget in line to keep the taxes down? How do we control our spending? How do we look at what we're spending, how we're spending it, what we're spending it on? And also, and that also entails the school systems too.
Absolutely. And that's,
And by the sounds of it, you say it's basically the school and the state and the county that's raising our taxes up. But we elected you to help keep them down. So how do you negotiate? Who do you talk to? Who do you negotiate with when it comes to those tax rates, that equalization? It's
that's
not just stamped in stone, is it?
the state sets that number. I have no control over that number. Our assessor has no control over it.
There's absolutely no way you can go give them local facts, somebody in Albany or somebody who lives down in New York City is telling you this is the way it should be and that's the way it's gonna be.
No, it's all based on home sales, property sales. It's based on if lot biologicals just sold, Bristol Myers Squibb sold. That number is recorded by the state and they know what that industry sold. And they'll apply that number to similar industries all across. So a gas station sells on the corner, the state knows that, and they look at the location and they come up with a number that sets the value for every municipality throughout the state.
So where does the extra money go?
But it's
So you've raised all of our taxes, right? So where's that money going?
what money?
The extra
Your
taxes that I'm paying, where is it going? Where are you spending it?
I'll provide you a budget, but I have 45 police officers. I have 24 snowplow drivers. I have the people that staff this office and for 15 cents on every dollar that you pay in property tax that comes into the town of DeWitt, I can show you where your money goes.
Well, we'd like to see that because
Yeah.
this tax increase is hurting everybody. This is a big deal. It hurts.
I realize the taxes go up. But when I go to Price Chopper or Wegmans, that thing that I used to get a year ago, I'm going to get it, so I don't get it. So, and I'm sure it's the same with a lot of people. So when we do something in this town that we've done for years, and really the money isn't there to do it in order to help facilitate and take care of the residents of the town of DeWitt, maybe are there things we can cut out that aren't necessary? I don't have to have steak every night of the week. I just like to have it twice a month.
Barb's sitting over there. She can tell you. I became supervisor in 2007, right? And every department in this building is smaller than it was. Today, 80% of our costs are labor. We spend our money. We've got 130 employees and we spend our money staffing to provide the services of the town. And every department in this building is smaller than it was when I started. Our labor costs have held fairly current. Our budget is increased on average of 1.5% for 15 years a year. Now, I don't know if your school district can tell you that. I know the county can't tell you. The county's got a $1.5 billion budget. Their budget's larger than a couple third world nations combined. I've got a $19 million annual budget. And when I was elected 15 years ago, we were a little under 18 million. So we've barely increased our budget in that period of time. Yet we've increased our staffing on our police department. We maintain our highway department as well as we ever did. I drive all over central New York. I come back to DeWitt. I'm proud of the snow clearance that I have through our highway department. I don't know what else to tell you. We'll control our budget. We're going into our budget cycle for next year. Our goal is under 2%. At the same time, we have employees and the cost of rate, the index of living on them is increasing at the same rate it's increasing on you and I. So we managed to maintain pay increases for all our workers during that same period at a higher pace than we've increased our taxes. What does that do? It squeezes our budget tighter and tighter each year. If we're given 2% raises and our taxes are only increasing 1.5%, we're losing 0.5% a year.
We have a reserve fund balance. Is that going up or down?
It varies. In some departments, some areas, we picked up the police in the village of East Syracuse. And so the shift from the general town budget to the part town budget has been a flip on the fund balance. Our fund balance is strong. We're audited by the state. We have our own auditors.
Is it staying level? Is it increasing or is it decreasing? That was my question.
Increasing. It has gone up and down over the 15-year window.
15 years. What about the last 5 years? Has it gone up or down?
It's varied within that period of time. It's gone up last year.
Does anybody?
I mean, typically the state recommends that your fund balance be 10, they don't like you to have a fund balance above 15% of your budget. So typically it stays between 10 and 15%.
And then all that information is available on. Correct?
Our budgets are online.
But our reserves and stuff, that's all available online to show.
In part of the budget, yeah. And again, we're formulating our budget for 2024 now.
Yeah, I mean, like last year assessments went up, but our actual tax rate decreased. So, and I suspect this year our tax rate will decrease again. We're constantly adding to our assessed value, mostly with commercial development. There's been problems because we just don't have a lot of land for residential development, so we have not had a lot of residential development. But the commercial development has been active and it's going to continue to be active probably for the next 5-10 years with the addition of Micron coming to town and 81 being changed.
So as the assessment has gone up because of the state?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, the state keeps close track of what residential houses are selling for. It's like Clay has, it's a fake equalization rate. I mean, 3 point, whatever it is, 3.3, 3 point. I mean, we could do the same thing, but your taxes are going to still go up. I mean, we're being more transparent. We're being more transparent at 100%. Because Clay can say, oh, we didn't raise anybody's assessments, but the state comes in and in their case is going to lower their equalization rate, which is going to increase their total value of assessments. Because if you look at, Ed put a slide up there, but what the county, if you look at the county, the whole county picture, which is $30-40 billion, $50-100 billion, but whatever it is, the county then takes every town's assessed value and then proportions it to each town. So if towns aren't, and that's why the state does the equalization rate. Because if 6 towns said, we're not raising assessments, that way we're not going to pay as high a county rate. So the equalization rate actually forces the towns to increase their total assessed value.
Where does the money go?
Well, like I said, 35% of it goes to the county, 50% goes to the school districts, and that this is pretty, it might vary a point or two between the different towns, even the city of Syracuse. But the school districts are the biggest tax expense.
Your
I mean,
tax
if you
bill
look at-
itemizes where your money's
Yeah, if
going.
you look at your county, your town and county tax bill at the beginning of the year, it itemizes exactly where it goes. I mean, I don't know how many people in here are in the Town of DeWitt Fire District. But the Town of DeWitt Fire District, we pay a lot of money to our fire department. And you can look at your tax bill. Last year, the Town of DeWitt Fire Department budget went up 22%. Went from 3.5 million to 4.22 million. Take a look. It's right there on your tax bill. I looked it up. Those numbers are accurate. So if you're in $150,000 house, you're paying about $450 a year for fire service. And that's expensive. In that same house, you're paying about double that to the town for the police, for the highway, for everything you get from the town versus, and this will probably be seen by the DeWitt Fire Department. They'll probably be mad at me, but they have elections every December. And you can go and vote for fire commissioners, but it's a big part of your tax bill right now if you're in the DeWitt Fire District.
Our tax rate's broken into 3 pieces: part town, general town, and highway. I do believe your fire tax in the DeWitt Central District is higher than our highway tax. So we plow your stove, maintain your streets, pave them for less than your fire service.
And again, the police, I mean, Chief Bilodeau is right here with us. The police are expensive. And every year, we have to make a decision. Do we want to continue to fund our police? I think it's really important. And my feeling is the taxpayers in the town of DeWitt want a strong police department. That's a decision we make every year, and Chief Bilodeau and the budget committee sits down, and Ed sits down with them as well. And we focus on his budget. We look at it very closely, and you know, I think most of the board, if not all of us, are of the opinion that, yeah, the police are important to our residents. And we don't want to cut police officers, certainly not in this environment. But that's, you say, you know, what can you give up? I mean, do we want to get rid of 5 police officers? I personally do not. I don't think it would be a wise move to make.
I don't think that's what we're asking. We're just trying to get the taxes to be not, we don't want the assessment to go up. I don't think it's on a local level. I think it's more on the state level. I think that's where it's going.
But the point I'm trying to make is that whether your assessment goes up or not, your county and your school district, which is 85% of your tax rate, is going to be reflected in that equalization rate. And you're going to pay the same amount on a proportional basis that anybody else around the rest of the county. You're all, every municipality up there has slightly different equalization rate, and therefore the county tax rates differ from township.
Is it gonna go up again next year?
Clay, it's gonna, those numbers are gonna be consistent. Now, what the county does with their budget, the county sold last year that their tax rate went down. Their tax rate did go down, their budget did. Right? Because the county increased their hotel tax from 5% to 7%, and the county also picked up sales tax. Coming out of COVID, the economy responded strongly. And so again, they have a $1.5 billion budget, and they were able to absorb taxes through a number of different other mechanisms. Their budget greatly increased, and their tax rate went down because, again, the overall assessment went throughout the county.
Is it safe to say the further you get away from 100% assessment rate, the more you're handing off to the state? They're coming in to fill in that blank.
Yeah, they're gonna give you a higher lower equalization rate, which is gonna increase your tax rates. School districts and the county tax rate will increase the lower, farther away your assessments get from real. And the other grave danger is their inequitability in the tax rates. When you leave them stagnant, the more time that elapses, the more inequitable it gets. The neighbor's house could be, especially in those municipalities that go in and base it on sales, right? Let's say 1 out of every 20 houses sells. And that's the house that gets tagged with the increase, right? Well, then the older homes or ones that aren't selling may not see an increase in assessment, but over time, there's a tremendous inequity between houses that are worth the same amount, but a neighborhood can truly separate. You know, the same builder built 2 or 3 different floor plans in the same neighborhood. All of those homes are relatively equal in assessed valuation. And as people change, they put additions and build a garage, or they put modifications into their homes. If you don't stay current with that, it builds unequitable situations where you could have someone that's paying a greater proportion of taxes than they really should be. Yeah, Barb?
I look at the figures that you have. DeWitt, Lafayette, and Clay, and I only see about $1 difference in that.
Well, that's the point. They're all paying the same amount to the county, no matter despite, if I own a home in Lafayette.
I can't read the Clay.
Okay.
Tell me to zoom in.
It's all.
Yeah,
Which part should I zoom in?
yeah, zoom in on just the blue areas. If I own a home in Lafayette. And it's assessed at $75,000. The county is treating it like it's $100,000 house. They know that the Lafayette's undervalued, that their assessments haven't been current and haven't been kept up. Clay is so far behind.
Yeah,
The state's saying their houses are 3%, right? They haven't touched their assessment in years. And if you go into Clay, I mean, anybody that knows or talks to them, there's such inequitable situations between the homes that homeowners, it's like rolling the dice. Some are getting away with not paying and others are carrying a heavy burden, but there's no real equal proportioning of their taxes based on the actual values of what those homes are selling for. It's a mess. And I'm online saying that, and I've probably just made about 100 enemies.
One of the other things that the taxpayer can look at is the town's organizational minutes, which are done in January.
Yeah.
I believe they're online, and you can see where a lot of the money goes, and these 9 pages. And on page 9, for example, it says that an annual financial summary must be published. Anybody tell me how to access that?
Our financials are always posted online, right? I mean, I think they're on there now.
I think the town clerk has to file it.
Yeah, they-
Take it.
Yeah, they're filed.
So it should be with whom and where.
It would all be at the town of DeWitt website.
Under the government tab. When you go on the front page of the town of DeWitt, there's a government tab, and then you can go down there.
It should be on the controller's website, on the controller's webpage.
This is information.
What's that?
This is good information.
I agree. I think this is very helpful information.
Again, my personal opinion, those are all facts. My personal opinion is the towns that aren't raising their assessments are hiding the tax bills. They're not fully, when you look at your bill and you get your assessment, you can look at that number and you can say, oh, my house won't sell for that. And if it won't sell for what our assessor has it sell for, assessed for, you have the right, and I know he has forward assessments, you make the right case. You take your home, you take what you think it's worth into the assessor, and then if you don't agree, if he doesn't agree with you, you have a second option to go to the Board of Assessment Review, and those are independent individuals. And most of them work some form or another in the real estate industry, and they know and understand properties and their values and what they're worth. And they will either agree with you or disagree with you. If they disagree with you, then the assessment on the house will stand. If they agree with your case, and I know that they lowered a number of assessed valuations on homes. The homeowner has presented a legitimate case that their house wasn't worth what the assessor had placed on it, the value.
What's the percentage of homes that are brought to the board that are reduced? You have any idea?
Al, you got any idea?
Maybe 40 or 50. I'm not really, I never run that kind of percentage. Just sitting in the meetings, probably around that.
Well, 40%, okay.
And what percentage of homes that have their assessment increase actually read?
Probably somewhere between a 5 and 10%.
5 or 10%.
So part of what bugs me about this process is it feels inequitable. Because only a certain percentage of people are going to open their mail, and only a certain percentage of people beyond that have the means to show up and to read the assessment and to get all the paperwork together and get out of work and come in and do their thing. So I just want to voice that I feel like we're lucky enough in our family to have that ability, and we did come in, and I was out of town and my wife came in with me on speakerphone and we did the whole thing, right? And I'm in my conference stepping out and talking on speakerphone because that was the day we had to show up. It also feels a little bit unfair that some people know that they can come early. The people who know they can come early and have kind of a first crack at it without having to go through that whole June situation. They come in, maybe they come in May, maybe they come in April. That feels to me like it should be more transparent. Maybe it is, and I just don't know, right? But the process feels a little bit unfair. So I wonder if you could speak to that.
I'm gonna speak to that because yes, we would like to get the information out there. Today, we have so much forms of communication that not everyone follows the same format. And so it is very difficult for a municipality like ours where in the last 20 years, the Post Standard stopped covering us, right? Jason's here with Eagle newspaper, but how many people read the Eagle newspapers? That's good. That's great. That's great. But if you take the 28,000 residents that we have in the town of DeWitt and the 10,000 or 8,000 homes and went and polled them on where they get their news and their information, it'd be highly diverse. People are getting information from Twitter, Facebook, and some people are online and other people are on the major networks and other people are on cable news. And there's no good mechanism for us to, so one of the things we're committed to working on, this is the first public information meeting on assessments. I'm hoping we have more. I want to get some editorials out. I'd like to get some things on our webpage that tell people the process. Because I was surprised when the last group of residents came in, a couple of residents actually said they didn't know they had the option to bring their case to the assessor. And so from a public outreach standpoint, we certainly will try, but obviously need to do a better job in informing people of what their options are when they get their tax bill.
Did everybody get their tax bill in the mail? Did everybody get their water bill in the mail?
Yeah.
No, mail's been around a long time.
And we mail,
Simple sheet.
and we mail a newsletter the same way.
By the way, congratulations, that newsletter. I doubt that many people read it, but you've gotten better and better with that. And I compliment you for that.
Thank you. We're trying.
All of us.
I have people come to me all the time and ask me a question that I know was answered in the news.
Right.
And so
People-
we mail them to 7,000 homes, but very few read it. I don't know.
Disclaimer in the tax bill that people, when and if they don't agree with it, can come in. People will read that. A lot of people don't read newsletters
That's right.
and stuff. They just toss them out, you know. It's good for the recycled.
Excellent point. We'll put, it's in there now, right? The letter you send when you raise their assessments, tell them they have a grievance policy, don't they? Yeah. Yeah, so I believe it's in there now. When people get their tax bill, I'm pretty sure they have the ability to grieve. And it's displayed.
Ours doesn't have anything in it except a pay.
It's the assessment letter that has that, not the assessment.
The assessment letter has, it. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The tax bills are actually prepared. We mail them out, but the tax bills are prepared at the county.
But what about this pre-grievance day period of time?
That was in the letter.
It's in the assessment.
The informals I do every year, so as soon as the letters go out, I'll start doing informals. I will do them right up until a couple days before the formals start.
But is that specified somewhere that that's happening?
There's the dates that I'm gonna be in the office for that. We set up appointments though, so if we don't just do the walk-ins like that. But anybody can call in and make the informal, and we do set up by state law, we have to set up 4 hours after hours and 4 hours on Saturday. That'll all be in the assessment letters.
Which won't be till next year now, right? That's for next May.
Yeah, that's just once a year, the assessment.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Al, that was all included this year, correct?
Yes.
It was all included this year. That's all regulated, just add to that. It's all regulated by the state of New York. What Al sends out is determined by the law of the state of New York in regard to the entire process. So the town really doesn't have any legislative control over how that process works.
This is just a comment too, just my problem is, I got the letter, I read all of these things, I read the Eagle newspaper and everything. And I printed out the complaint form for the assessment because my thought is my house is being assessed at a lot more than I think it's worth. But I don't know how to go out about finding, how do I find out what my house is worth? I can look at sales in the area around my street, but that's what's very unclear to me, because I don't meet any of the requirements on this complaint form, besides from my gut feeling that my house isn't worth what it's saying it's being assessed at. Like, that's the part that's confusing to me. How do you do that without knowing someone in real estate or having had an assessment on my house in the past 5 years? I mean, I think 5 years ago, I got it assessed when I did a home equity line of credit, but it's dramatically higher than then because so much has changed in the past 5 years. So how do you go about with one of the reasons to say this is being assessed higher than, besides talking to your neighbors on the street?
Yeah, the central New York market has, that was the graphs I was showing at the end.
Yes.
And the way I look at that is, take central New Yorkers in general. Let's say you work 40, 50 years in central New York, you have a home. You want to downsize when you're gonna retire, you're gonna move, so perhaps, or you at least want to invest. You take your equity from your home, that's usually your number one investment. And you go to Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, whatever. You're coming against everyone else in the country. And the sad part of central New York's economy is that it's great cost of living, right? Home values are lower than anywhere else in the country for the most part. But when you go into other markets and you're competing with the individual that come from other states or other larger metropolitan areas, that individual's doubled or tripled the value of their home over the course of their lifetime, and they're basically out competing you because you have no equity. If you bought a house in 1950 for $10,000, you know, but it's selling for 110 now. You made 100,000 on it in a 50-year window, but the person that bought a house at $100,000 in 1950 in another market sold it today is at over $1 million. You're going back. So again, what I feel is happening in central New York right now is we're finally starting to see equity, but the home sales are skyrocketing, right? Homes that were selling for 150 7 years ago or 300,000 now.
Ed, I think the young lady is asking, let's pretend that her house is number 100 on J Street. She wants to know where can she find a database where number 102 J Street on 111 J Street? Where
It's not at all scientific, but you could go to Zillow. You could take your house and go to Zillow.
Yeah.
On gov.net, better resource. On gov.net.
You have a comparables thing where you can actually compare all of the houses, like the say, like ranch or whatever.
Show you where to go, when you go down.
Where are the comparables based?
If you go,
If you go-
get it comparable, you can
I
compare
can walk everybody through it, it's very easy, I don't, without getting from a computer, but you go to that, you go to property tax information.
So you're saying that those comparables are all on gov.net?
Yeah, the county has all that
They
information.
have a tool right on the website for it.
There you go.
Behind you, the street on the
All
other
right,
side.
thank you.
It's
This is the
okay.
question.
It's 90%.
Okay,
Very easy.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay.
That helps.
I'm gonna ask the clerk to take the roll
All right, Supervisor Mikalenko,
here.
Counselor Chiarenza,
Here.
Counselor Doctor. Here. Counselor Dooling,
Here.
Counselor Clehood. Here. Counselor Mannion,
Here.
Counselor Ruchtershaw,
Here.
all present.
Okay, I know we've got a couple of individuals here that are, let's jump down, rearrange the schedule so that some folks can, I'm gonna authorize the updated software for the LED signs. Like Director Fire.
Well, I think what I sent to you kind of explained everything. It's really your approval if you want. I have the way that it is done right now. You get in your car, take your laptop, which is slightly bigger than the one Aaron has. You're not, it's twice the size. You plug this lot into it. You plug this into it, you plug this into your car. This is the sign from the opposite side of the road and hope you get a connection. When a truck goes by or it's raining, it takes a while. Nice day like today where there was actually nobody about, it was very quick. Okay, but there are other times this can be the world's most frustrating piece of equipment, and there's a lot of little pieces that are fragile. So I had looked up as to what it would cost to get that updated. I was looking at just doing the one here, but Ed reminded me that the sign Bishop Rhymes was the same vintage and the same thing. I talked to the gentleman who updates the sign there, and he has this set up in his office, so it points right at the sign. There isn't anything in the way, and he just types in whatever he needs, and it's do it. So, and 9 times out of. Why was it the Carrier Park sign? The Carrier Park sign is actually controlled, which is what I want to get to. It's controlled from a computer that both Ryan and I have, Ryan Goff and I have access. We have access from our own from our desktops.
So the software you're proposing for the other two
Would be
required to carry?
Yeah, it wouldn't be required at Carrier. It would emulate. The other two signs would then be like the one at Carrier, and we can update it from any, from any computer that has that software, which makes it, as I said, significantly more responsive to everybody who needs to use the sign.
I believe the cost of the software will save itself in labor costs.
Yeah, labor, wear and tear on the van.
Just one question, is there, I see, so the total cost we have in here to update the 2 signs is $3,155. Is there a recurring cost for the
That's for the
software?
lifetime of the sign.
Okay, so that's just one time, and then we'll be able to, for the rest of the sign, we'll be able to change it from the office.
Yes, I mean, notwithstanding any software upgrades that might come along for the sign itself or for the software in it. But yeah, in terms of upgrading the sign, it would be like the Carrier Park sign.
Have you, coming out of our last budget committee meeting, have you identified a budget line or something where this
I
money
have,
comes
in
from?
fact, worked with Carrie and we've found a couple of places and then she'd found somewhere else. So I think we can make this happen this year.
Okay.
May I ask about
Yes.
the maintenance? They all look beautiful once you get it all set up.
That they do.
Is there a maintenance contract or something of that nature that would be able to cover any updating of the signs and the signs about which we are speaking? Where we advertise all of our most excellent programs, and that's what we're talking about. And I wanted to make sure, because everything looks good when you first put it up,
Right.
and then people wander off.
I believe it does. And I cannot answer that up with 100% certainty. But yes, I believe it does.
Hey, any other questions from the board?
Pass it to me, I can.
I'll entertain a motion to authorize the expenditure on the software. Have a motion from Karen, a second to Jack. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thing, motion's carried.
All right, thank you all very much.
All right, I'm gonna go to the ESM SPO officer.
Peter, can you send that to me just so I have it for the file when you're ready? Want to see what the maintenance piece.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay, here, hold on, I have to get to the Chiefs page. I'll see you later.
I'll check it out.
Okay.
Should be short. So last meeting, we met and we discussed adding SPO to the ESM school district on a split time between East Syracuse Elementary and Park Hill. We discussed going back to ESM and asking for $15,000 over and above the SPO salary. I spoke with Dr. Neveldine, they're agreeable to that amount, so he sent me an updated MOU, so I would just like the board to move and authorize that to sign that MOU so we could start with the process of hiring. I do have a candidate in mind. I have a retired officer, Jeff McConnell, I would like to have him interview for the position with school and start there.
I just want to add, for the sake of the observers and the residents, could you explain that the $15,000 is not coming out of our budget, and in fact, we're getting reimbursed for it.
Yeah, so SPO positions are school resource officers, it's called special patrol officer, that's the civil service title for that position. But this is something that does come out of the school district's budget, they will reimburse the town at a rate a little above 100%, so they'll reimburse 100% of the salary. And then in this case with ESM, they're gonna reimburse an additional $15,000 for administrative costs, uniforms, vehicles, and stuff like that each year over and above, so. This doesn't increase the police budget, but it does in fact come out of the school budget, but this is a decision the ESM is making so that to put FPOs in each of their schools.
Any other questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion to authorize the signature.
I so
I have a motion from Karen and a second from Sarah. Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain, motion's carried. Anything else?
You want me to, I don't see anybody here, but we can discuss it real quick if you want, just 'cause-
Let's just get it over with.
Okay. So, the last budget committee meeting, I brought up the idea of perhaps looking into changing the way that we do school crossing guards. We currently have 2 school crossing guards, one at Moses, DeWitt, and one at Holy Cross. Those are the only 2 schools that we have crossing guards at. There's an antiquated state law that talks about the crossing guards need to be funded through the police department, and the reason that exists is because they're doing traffic control. And that's, so historically, that has always been where crossing guards have come from, as we've. That works for salaries, if you're paying a crossing guard specifically, that's their only job. Right, so if you're gonna reimburse an individual who walks from their house to be a crossing guard, and that's all they do, then they're empowered by the police department because they're in traffic control in that situation. That was the logic behind it. You've seen districts all across the country and all across New York State relates to state law. It changed, you'll see that there's volunteer crossing guards, you'll see that there's school employees that do this. So if a school employee did it, we could not reimburse them because then they can't be getting paid by the school and they can pay by us at the same time. But we could empower them, they could be employed by the school as in their janitorial or whatever, whoever you chose to do it in that capacity, they could still act as a crossing guard. I was thinking I was being proactive and I was gonna have a discussion with the school district and say, I don't know that this is the most efficient means for us to be doing this, is paying this individual. The other concept is Mr. Jones does a very good job for us right now. But what we had found prior to Mr. Jones, when the last person retired, it took us 3 months to find someone who was willing to do this. You have to come out twice a day, you're there from 7:30 to 8, then you have to be back available 2:30 to 3. It ties up 5 days a week. Took us 3 months and they had to go put a police officer there at each of those posts. And that would be if there wasn't a cost for service or days we couldn't get there because the emergency call went out. I think we could find a better way to do it. I've talked to Dr. Smith, school district. I kind of like the idea of the LED flashers, the crossing ones like they have at Linden Golf Course now. You've seen other locations where you hit the button, they're very bright light. It tends to get traffic attention. They stop, then the individuals cross. I like not making it person dependent necessarily. I think it's if Dr. Smith likes that as well, we'd like to explore that idea. I think it's more effective. I actually think it's safer than having someone go out in the middle of the road and try to stop cars and getting a culture of this is what we have at this location. The one-time expense for these lights versus paying someone every time and then relying on them to be there if they get sick and they don't show up, they're late. This is always there. I like that idea. I'm in conversations with them. I'd like to continue the conversation. I don't know that's the best answer. I don't know that we don't make it a school employee. When we informed the crossing guard, Mr. Jones was quite upset. He really seems to really like his role and I appreciate that. He's great at it. But he called the PTSA and he called the school and he was very upset. He called here multiple times. Peter called Peter's office because he thought he was employed by the rec department, called everybody. And so I know that there has been a lot of kickback from the community. I understand that they want something there. Whatever the community wants, I'm in favor of. It's not a huge budget item. I'm worried that going forward, it's not the most efficient and the most sustainable practice. I'd like to have conversations on making it better.
I have a question based upon some research emails that were presented to me. You mentioned that it was less than money. That the dollar amount is, I don't want to say negligible because that sounds negative, but it's not a huge amount, but it is part of our police budget.
Correct.
So we are paying for that through you.
Yeah, I don't think it's the most efficient use of the money. I think at one time, to me, I like the LED crossers. I think that they're effective. I like not making it person dependent. I think they're very effective.
And my second part of the question, before you get to yours, chief.
Sorry, I tend to go on.
That's all right. I'm focused on what I want to say. You mentioned here that the question has less to do with money than with management. Does that mean that our police department is also managing the behavior, the employment, et cetera, of the crossing guard? Or is the individual school doing that?
No, he's employed by the police department.
So
Comes
it's
here.
us
Right.
overseeing as part of our police force. We have this little piece of the pie where you are using resources to keep the management system up to par with this employee.
Correct. It's that, and it's also the management piece I meant is when, if he can't show up, it then falls to the responsibility of us to send an officer to that location to cross that. And so what that happens is either an officer is not available to take a call for service, or they're in the middle of a call for service and that post isn't filled on that day. So that's why I like the idea of either employee who's already at the school all the time doing it because it's more reliable, or not making it person dependent and having a system in place, designing it that this is just as effective without a person. I don't know which one I like better. I'd like to talk with Dr. Smith and continue those conversations.
Is there also is it far-fetched to say that in the middle of managing the employee, one of the officers comes to take the place of someone who doesn't show up? What if a call goes out and you need that person, that police officer, to go to the call, and that person is handling crossing guard duties?
Correct. Yeah, I don't like that. That's what I
Okay.
don't think it's an effective use of resources. I don't think you're using the police as effectively as you could in that situation.
So I don't have a problem with investigating, different ways of handling it. I'm not tied to having a crossing guard there. I think that feels like this process was, I don't know whether it's just not handled well or somebody jumped the gun or whatever, because the impression from parents in the neighborhood is that there's just not going to be crossing guard there in September.
Which isn't true.
But that's the, as I'm saying, that's whatever it was, however it was handled, that's the impression that I'm getting back from parents.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you how it was handled was we were being courteous and we told Mr. Jones that we were looking into this to be courteous, which it would take effect January, first of all, it'd be 6 months from now. I asked Lieutenant Pace, I said, I think we should at least let him know that we're thinking about doing this because I thought that was courteous. He became very upset and called everyone. So hindsight 2020, maybe, I guess, I wasn't expecting that reaction from him. But he was very upset that we were considering doing something else, and that's how this played out. So he called and emailed the likes of the PTSA, who then put a message out to the entire community and gave the impression that we were not going to have a crossing guard in September, which is why we thought we should talk about it here tonight. I emailed the PTSA directly and said, no, that's not the case. You can contact me. Here's my cell phone. Please feel free to call me. They haven't. But
so that was the other part that I just wanted to confirm, was the position is already budgeted
through the end of the
fall.
year.
Yeah, through the end of the year.
And we are only in our beginning budget stages. It could be budgeted for next year. We had our first meeting for the 2024 budget. I brought this up and was trying to be proactive.
So I would say, myself, I think we have time here to have the conversation with the school district. I think we just need to I think it just needs to be clear that, in my mind anyway, there needs to be, I think what I'm hearing is that you agree, there needs to be traffic control of some kind there are a lot of very young kids that cross a busy Jamesville Road right in front of the school there. And that there needs to be some kind of traffic control to make it as safe as possible for them to cross, whether that's a person, whether that's employed by the school district, whether it's a person employed by the police department, whether it's technology, there needs to be something there. However we move forward, I would just like to be able to reassure the town and the residents of that area that we're not going to get rid of the crossing guard without something to replace it.
Yeah, I think the message I would like, I was hoping someone would be here. Honestly, I thought they might come to the meeting based on some of the response, but.
These people were the.
No, I knew they were here for something. I thought, I will send another message to the full PTSA board after today, but I wanted to at least have the conversation here that all I'm doing is looking to have a conversation to say, is this the most effective and efficient way to go forward?
Chief Burber's question. Is that the only crossing guard?
Yes,
There's not a Janesville or a Tecumseh?
no, which is part of the reason I think.
Is there one Holy Cross too, Chase?
Holy Cross was the only other one, but we are eliminating that one regardless. We spoke with Holy Cross and they're okay with it. They just don't get the traffic we get.
So there is one at Holy Cross that.
Currently this year there is, yeah, but they just don't get the walking traffic that Moses gets.
Actually, and it's dangerous.
And I don't, there's multiple reasons. It's a private school and
Better too.
I'm not sure that we should in fact be.
I've seen traffic, actually, a car stop for the crossing guard. And cars pass
The other one.
the car that's parked and almost hit the crossing guard.
Okay.
So I was gonna write, if you do some technological fix, you add cameras. Because I know it's an added burden, but the number of people that run red lights or passing a crossing guard and passing a school bus. It's stopped is.
That boy's got no problem with block camera there, I promise you, he'll be all for it, so. It's in his budget request.
I witnessed it on.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Several occasions.
Which is, I really do like those LEDs. I think they grab people's attention so well. I think it's an effective device. I don't know how many of you have seen them at Linden when you're crossing and they put them in for the golf carts now. There's a lot of locations that have them. I really think that they get people to stop.
Sarah has a question, so
Go ahead.
We call those wig wags. Those lights that go like this, the wig wags, but to the point, I think at the end of the day, regardless of the solution at hand, are you also looking to have the conversation with the school board that they take that budget item and they own it completely?
Yeah, I mean, I have to look at the installation of those, where exactly they go and see where that would fall, right? But to me, I think it would be a school district owned apparatus. I mean, I'll talk to Rock a little bit about where they fall on the road, just because I don't know exactly how some of those work.
Also a county road, right?
So,
Okay.
but I'd be surprised, to me, I'd be super surprised if the county wasn't okay with it and the school district would also be okay with paying for it. I think that would be how it would end up playing out.
All right, and then secondly, to close the loop, the principal at Moses DeWitt sent out yesterday evening a note to everybody that is on the official school tool, which is the Janesville DeWitt School District's official means of communications to parents. And the email was just to keep you on the loop as we find out more information about our crossing guards position. We have heard that this position is not cut, but the contract is up and negotiations need to happen. Many believe this is an important job and support this position. And then it encourages folks to show up at the town board hall meeting tonight. So at least the message did get out to close the loop that we acknowledge. Did you get the message?
Yes. I tried to call Mary today. He wasn't in the office. I wanted to talk to both her and Dr. Smith directly. She wasn't available. I did talk to Dr. Smith. And he reiterated, yes, we're on the same page. I'd like to talk to him over the summer, get the solution figured out over the summer and have it, so that we can talk about it. So I will try to follow up with Mary too and see.
do you have an estimate on the cost of the lighting system?
I don't, I haven't even looked into that yet, Jack. Like I said, this just came up last week as an idea in my first budget proposal. I was anticipating having conversations about it and coming up with a solution. I wasn't anticipating.
Some flashing lights are expensive. I think we installed a couple.
Cost for the crossing guard would be about 20 grand a year.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, we're spending $15,000 a year, I want to say. I think it's 15.
Without the increase for
The raises if it went up, right? So, and that raise 12 this year.
Or is there something you wanted to ask?
You guys see
Sitting on the edge of my seat. So, no, I would just say, so we live on Pickwick. And I drive and pick up twice a week, just twice a week. And I park in the neighborhood and then walk over. A lot of people do that. A lot of people live right around. So it feels like a particular circumstance that doesn't exist everywhere. It also felt sudden, right? And it wasn't just the cross. I don't want it all to get put on the crossing guard because he's doing his job, right? The parents are very irritated that the communication was not good. So you don't have to respond to that. That's okay. I'm just letting you know what the reality is. So I feel like it would be important for a lot of conversation to happen. Unless you've crossed the street and you've seen the crossing guard go out into the street well ahead of a car coming to give them warning, and then the car still go 40 miles an hour through the school zone, then you haven't quite experienced what that's like, right?
I've seen.
So, maybe we need the lights and a crossing guard. I'm just gonna float that because that may be true.
Yeah, and just to be clear, it was bad communication because communication wasn't supposed to happen. Like, we were only having discussions about could we improve this? Is this the best way to do it? And then
I'm not trying to blame anybody for
I
anything,
understand.
I just let you know how the parents are feeling, which is that like.
I'm okay with a little blame. I'm very disappointed in the PTSA. They should not have put the message out they put out.
Okay, so
They should have called me.
here's a point counterpoint. First thing I did when the crossing guard talked to me personally was I called Mary. To confirm,
Mary Sylvester's the principal of the elementary school.
okay? So again, not about the PTSA. It's about parents contacting the school to confirm information that they've heard secondhand. The information gets confirmed by the principal, who then mentions that the superintendent has also been in touch with the police department. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but that's just the reality, right? So we're all just doing the best with the information we have, and we are actually trying to confirm the information before we send it out to other people.
Yeah, it is a big telephone game. I mean, it's a little bit on this one, I think, for sure. We're in the.
But just so you know what happened.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And I don't mind the messages. I don't like the misinformation, right? I don't like people not knowing what is actually happening and thinking that, you know, so it's got right that time.
Forward, there's nothing that says the person that does it in the morning is the same person in the afternoon too.
No, but the struggle for us was finding it. Like I said, it took us 3 months before we found Mr. Jones. It is hard to find someone it is a big responsibility. It comes with a lot of.
It might be easier to find people that might be able to find a morning person that says, yeah, I can do the morning.
Yeah.
And if you have 3 or 4. Fill in or substitute.
Yeah, we do. We always have subs built in. And again, it's just, it's not a super consistent process. I like the idea of someone that works at the school doing it because they're there every day. And when they're not there, another employee knows they're not there and can do it, or making it non-person dependent, but.
And I like that there's food for thought that is bandied about the room and on the record with people online, so that you, chief, have some information about how the people are feeling and options that are out there going forward. And as you said, this is the summer, usually it's December 31st before you know it. But that's when the budget piece is squared away. Is that right?
Yeah, this was funded all the way through the end of this year already, and we had one meeting on the 24th election, so we
Okay.
have plenty of time. And I will say that message well received from the community.
Yeah.
They value that position more than I realized, so that if anything good came out of it, I now realize how important it is that particular, and you're very right, it is very, it's a large amount of walkers on a busy road, I understand all of that.
One last question. You said this dates back to a historical New York state law, and it's reason that you're maintaining it on your budget. So is there a way that we can go forward with it being handled by JD financially? With this law still intact?
So I think the only way you can do it through JD financially is if it's a position that is employed by them outside and they're not being compensated for the crossing guard duties. So if they're a staff member who's already at school and already working and they choose that I'll put a vest on and I'll assist students across the road, that's fine. But if we're going to compensate a person just for that specific job only, it has to come from our budget.
So if Mr. Jones were to continue on in this role, it would have to remain under your budget.
Correct. And my stress is not a lot about Mr. Jones. I think he does a great job. I'm worried when he chooses not to do it anymore.
Right.
We can't find someone else to do it. So I was trying to be a little proactive and say, I think it would be better to make it a school employee. That was my initial thought. Only upon really follow-up conversations, I said, well, maybe we should look at the LED lights. Maybe we should look at both.
I think we would need at least both for an interim period for folks to get used to the lights, because to your point, it's a wild intersection right there. It's not safe.
And considering how long the process is taking to just try and get the school speed zone in at Tecumseh, it may take years to get lights in.
Yeah, I think there's no change. I think that is a much easier change. They're not reducing a lot. I think the DOT seems to be much more likely to allow places to put those things in quicker than the experience I
As
have.
long as you're paying for it.
They don't care, right?
They're not gonna pay.
Yeah, I agree.
Honestly.
And, yeah, and I agree, but I, you know, on my conversation with Dr. Smith, I think the school district would certainly be open to installing those.
Oh, East Syracuse Elementary, the recreation people that work in the rec department in the village, Tom Richardson and Keith Carroll.
Correct, but he's not being paid for his crossing guard duties. He's being paid as a rec. He's just like doing his regular recreation salary, so.
Peter Clark could have a couple of his people go over there and help out there.
Sure, Peter loves it. So again, I do think we're in good shape. Mr. Jones has clearly made it clear that he wants to continue this. So I think we're okay either way with that, but I do want to continue the discussions. Is this truly the most effective and efficient way to do it?
The gentleman has a final question.
Just quick, yeah. We've gotten the notification through the district that discussions are ongoing. I wonder if something official could or should come from the town/police department with some of the information you've shared tonight about budget through December and things like that, so that there's a little more detail and it's coming from the town.
Yeah, we can put something
That's
out.
possible, whether it could be an email, it could be an email that gets sent to the school and then gets disseminated that way, or whatever works for you, but that could be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I do too.
I like that idea. I wanted to have the discussion tonight first to make sure the board was aware, and then like I said, I'll follow up with Mary tomorrow. It is probably better off coming from her because she has the contact for all the parents already, more so the reach of the school is better than ours, even from a social media standpoint, so.
PDF that she can include it.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's go to the, it's time to get it. It's, having a fireworks display on August 12th. Our department has contracted Young River Sport. The authorization for the, permit.
In association with Canal Days.
I'll have a motion from Carrie and a second from Karen. Call for the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained, motion's carried. All right, let's go back to the town board minutes, June 12th.
And there's a young lady in the audience who may want to present, I suspect. Diane Chappelle Daly, the young lady wearing stripes.
Is there a question or an issue you have from the board?
I hadn't planned to, but since you invite me to, I will. You want me to come up there?
Yes, that's the lady. From Holliston Circle.
Right, I live in Holliston Circle and we've been trying to determine the status of the wall that's deteriorating on the entrance to our development. It's just getting worse and worse. And so I had asked Karen, and I think someone had asked supervisor to let us know who owns the property, what we could do to address it.
What I can tell you is that what we've done in the past is there's a Witchart neighborhood and a wall that you actually put that together, right? We split the cost with the homeowners association. Is that what ended up happening?
Didn't really have a homeowner, we put a budget together and the residents within that neighborhood went out and raised 50% of the total cost. Town that contributed the other.
So the town owns the wall.
I don't think it's.
No, we don't own house walls. Most of them are maintained by the Point East, Apple Cross Woods on Peck Hill. The homeowners association maintains those. They're put in the right of way when the development, but really the town doesn't own them. They are placed in the right of way, but we don't own or maintain them.
But the town owns the property.
I would have to check with Al and look at the survey, but probably they're in the right of way.
Okay, we don't have a homeowners association, so I don't know where that leaves us.
Well, in the DeWittshire example that we used, there were a couple neighbors that generally went out, started talking to their neighbors saying, hey, we all want to get this fixed. And they raised the. Again, we knew that the budget was, let's just say, $22,000. They went out amongst the neighbors and raised 11,000. Point the town said, okay, we will contribute the other $11,000 and you know, again, I don't know if you how familiar you are with DeWittshire. But DeWittshire, east and west both have really nice pillars. And just as Holliston does, I don't think the Holliston is as much, my guess is it would be a little less expensive to fix.
Right, so if we talked to one of the neighbors and came up with a proposal, we could ask the town.
We'll get the cost estimate.
Yeah, I would like, if Rocco, if you could just maybe take a look at it.
Engineer.
I don't know if I could give you a good number. It's mostly brick over there, I believe.
Is it?
Not a brick.
That is correct.
Maybe if you, again, maybe if you and Doug Miller can,
Yeah, don't take.
yeah, have Doug take a look at it and come up with a ballpark.
I appreciate it, and then you could get back to me or someone could.
Yes,
Great, thanks.
send the information to me. We're vintage colleagues, so we know each other. I know,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for coming.
Be well. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. June 12th.
Well, I'm lost. Oh, the
I was in
minutes.
the process of entertaining a motion from
Thank you.
Carrie, a second from Sarah. I'll call for the vote, all in favor,
Hi.
opposed, and I will abstain. I was absent.
Not there.
Okay. The New Venture Gear property, Councilor Dooley.
Yes, I sent everyone an email on June 15th about a New Venture Gear. Conduit owns property over there, a building that used to be the Eves property. Prior to that, it was our water department and also our parks department used it, but there's 2.2 acres there, 5,500 square feet. Was built in 1985, has an assessed value of $322,400. And I'd like to put that up for sale because the budget committee can sure use the money going towards the budget. That's another way of helping the budget committee out. And it's been sitting there for vacant for probably 4 or 5 years. I'm not positive how long, but 4 or 5 years. And I've been contacted by a land developer who was interested in buying it, and he said he would buy it for the assessed value. So I have a good possibility of having a buyer for it, so I would like to take any questions anybody has about that.
Are we using the property right now for anything
No.
else?
Nothing. Rocky has to send guys over there to cut the grass, that's another thing, another, a very small part of it that we would be able to eliminate.
I generally don't have any problem putting something back on the tax rolls. Sounds like a good idea.
I oppose this. And I'll explain why. We picked it up at the time. We've owned it. It was the home for Eves, so it was never on the tax rolls. And I look at it as a potential community room or the north side. It's right proximate to the hotels. It's proximate to Carrier Park. It could be a maintenance facility, a garage slash for, we're looking at building sidewalks, for example, throughout that whole area in the hotel district. Where would we store the snowplows? Right? Because we will end up plowing the sidewalks. And so and then Sanders Creek runs through that property. And we have a plan to build greater flood storage in Sanders Creek property. So those 2 acres are a potential flood storage location of which we have not modified the creek, Sanders Creek. It's been treated like a drainage ditch around that property. And if you go there on a nice summer day, you'll see there is healthy fish population in Sanders Creek. And so you could restore the natural condition of the creek, increase flood storage throughout that whole corridor. We're talking with Doug about carrying that in Rocco all the way back into the Dunrogan and Franklin Park area. So there's multiple reasons I want to keep it. And then the third and final reason is we do collect rent from the cell phone tower there. So if we ever turned it into a viable community room, and the rent off of the cell phone tower, it can be a viable And I don't believe you'll get the revenue that you would in the long term between the community room, the use of the facility for storage in the garage that's in the back right now for things like snow plows and equipment for Carrier Park or the hotel district that we're talking about all those improvements. And then the revenue you generate is short term. It's 1 year. It jumps into your budget. You reduce your budget for that single year, but then the next year you have to make that up. How do you then put another $200,000 shot into your budget? The only way that it would be a viable long-term income on the sale would be to hold the mortgage. No, and again, I just think it's short-term thinking. It's another short-term fix.
Well, we would get $325,000 for it, plus we would get tax from the owner. We would get so much money in tax, probably about $10,000 in taxes.
I just think at this point in time, it's a mistake. That's my general opinion, and I'm thinking.
You've told me that for about 3 or 4 years now.
I have, but we're on the verge of a hotel tax right now that would pay for the renovations of that building, to make it a viable community. We're gonna lose Station 2 in a year or two. Where are we gonna hold our senior programs out in the north end of town?
Not till 2027. It's in 4 years. 2027 is when the community room was over to.
Well, here's let's continue to study. I mean, we're not gonna make a decision tonight. I think it's something that we need to talk about. I mean, we'd have to subdivide off the cell tower.
Right.
So, why? Because the cell tower generates $60,000 to $80,000 a year.
Thank you. Okay.
Not according to Carrie Fusco. It generates about $1,400 a month.
She got the wrong cell tower. That cell tower is our most used cell tower. There's.
Well, who's got the figures for it? Because that's what I talked to her today, and that's what I was going.
I'll bet you.
I'm not betting.
I know
got it from the controller.
I'm right. The $12,000 cell tower is the Verizon cell tower on top of the water tower over by the Nottingham.
Can we
That's
get
what-
the official figures for the next time this discussion?
It was $6,500 a month,
All right.
and that was when there was carriers on that tower. I think one carrier might have left, so there might only be 2 on there. So it might have dropped to 5,000 a month, but we can get, but it's $50,000 to $80,000.
But that can rise too, the number of carriers.
Yeah, if they
It's the
put, yeah,
potential.
but we're not selling the cell phone
We're
tower.
not,
Cell phone tower alone is worth $1 million.
we're not investing
The
any
building itself,
time and energy and resource into the property, and for small investments, I believe the return is greater than the sale.
I mean, Jack might have a good point.
$325,000 that we're passing up here, that would really help the town.
No, but we need to subdivide the cell tower.
Right.
And would we be responsible for if the building's out of code, bringing it up to code prior to sale?
But again, you'd lose the ability to store the sidewalk.
I'm not saying I'm for a sale or against it. I hear you, and I think that you have great points, and I think that we took the long-term goal in 4 years, the cell phone tower can make 325,000.
The recovery, to replace it would be much more expensive. Let's say we did get snowplows and sidewalks over in the hotel district in the north side of town. How would we store those snowplows? Or would we be putting them on trailers and trailing them back and forth? Now the added labor costs come back. Again, the water storage, the water quality issues, the community room, there's just a number of reasons to hang on to that building.
But it's nowhere near the size of the community room. We're having a substitute as the community room when we lose the community room to the village.
It's actually big, it'll be bigger. Square footage on the potential inside of that building. The reconfiguration. One of the reasons we're not using it is we didn't spend the money on remodel.
Why you feel we're gonna lose community room? You think, it's gonna be able to
Because we're obligated by law to give the building and forward street to the village.
and the village gonna be able to handle
What?
it? The village gonna be able to run it on their own?
It's up to the village. We have no control. I'm sure they
Twenty
can.
twenty-seven,
Yeah.
April of 2027. That's what it says on the plaque on the door.
Time flies when you're having fun.
But I would say to that,
Hasn't flown on this one.
I would say considering that it's not in the village, they may not have an interest in running it, so even though they own it.
Right.
They may be interested at that time in still having our Parks and Rec just continue going with it.
At a point,
Right.
they're gonna rent it to us.
The village is still there.
Okay, let's move to the senior star update. Sorry about that, Al, I would have jumped. I thought we were done with property assessments.
Pardon me, is it?
I should have done this with the assessment conversation.
Okay, Senior Star. Ryan McMahon announced this past week that he was having the county legislature vote on that, and that he recommends they go to $58,300 as the income for seniors in order to get Senior Star exemption amount. Al has attended a meeting at ESM, and Al can tell you what ESM said. He wrote me back a note. Al did on May 30th and said, I went to the meeting at ESM to form a committee. They are just forming a committee to review the senior exemption. But just getting the committee set up, they're thinking they'll make a decision in the fall. I believe the county is looking to make their decision then also. Well, the county's gonna make it long before the fall because they're gonna make it probably in July. They're recommending the same thing that New York State already passed. New York State passed it at $58,300. And the county's gonna pass it at the same. The school district historically does the same thing as the county does. That's 3 out of the 4 entities that are pretty much focusing on the raise it to $58,300. So I would recommend that the town do the same thing at $58,300.
As you love pointing out, Jack, there are 3 school districts.
Yes. However,
Has JD or FM, I mean, not that FM relates matters that much, but has JD moved on it at all?
They haven't contacted me about that at all. They didn't invite me to any of their meetings. They were still looking, I think, and kind of wait till the fall. That's when their budgets are set. They kind of know where they're going with stuff. Next meeting for ESM is the end of September, so they're not gonna do anything very quickly at this. They have until technically March 1st, but the sooner, like, we make a decision, the county makes a decision, the more time you have to get it out to the public so that people can get on it.
So right now, you
start, because it's a senior citizen low income exemption, it's a totally separate thing from the start.
So right now, if JD hasn't done anything, ESM's not meeting again until September. Maybe they'll make a decision before the first of the year. That's kind of in that time frame would be the year of this, right? You're thinking?
Yeah, I was hoping they do it by like November or something. I'd like to get ours done before that. Like I said, I want to get it out to as many people as we can.
Jack is saying the county is moving quickly on this.
Well, the county executive went public. That doesn't. He launched it on the ledge now. That was his way of putting pressure on.
He's making the recommendation. It's not something that it passed.
I see.
So the ledge, we expect that the ledge will make that soon, but I've asked Al for an economic analysis of what kind of budgetary impact we think this is gonna have, and he did tell me today he thinks he could do this in July. So if we can get
On
that,
the county's proposal?
yes.
And so for the
It
county,
meets our budget.
I know, but if he was to do it the way the county did it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the state recommended program.
Well, but is it exactly the state recommended program? Because I saw that the county executive had proposed a step down. Was that in the state legislation as well?
They put it out differently every time they do it. What it is when they say the 29, which it is now, or the 50,000, that is the maximum limit for the full 50%.
Mhm.
Above that, about $1,000 increments or so, it steps down 5% for, and then it goes up to the 58,400.
Yeah.
So, and they just put it out differently every time they put it out. So, but yes, the step down program is what's in the, the new law that the state has already passed.
I'm kind of backing up the scheduling here. Al, you said we need this by March first decision from the board. What is your timeline that you need to know if we're jumping in on this?
March first is the absolute deadline to have any
It is.
forms in my office. So like I said, I would like to have it done this fall so we can get the information out to the seniors so that they can apply. Because it's a big jump for them and a lot of them have, become very used to the old numbers. So when they know that they went over that 37.4, they're not even going to come into my office. But if we get it out into the media, then.
And the county did say that, or at least the county executive said that it was his intention to have the county do some of that outreach as well. For the county, right?
Well, my thought process though is that should this not be handled until we're looking at the holiday season, if he brings it out in November, we have the entire holiday season, we could be at the organizational meeting when we discuss this again. That would give us approximately 3 town board meetings in the early year to figure it out.
I would think we're gonna do it earlier.
Oh, that's not good. That's not good.
Right, that's what
He
I'm
needs to
saying.
get, Al just said he just said twice, he needs to get the paperwork out in the fall.
I send out my renewal
Yeah,
forms,
understand it.
they're already on it.
He needs to write an article in the Eagle Bulletin that says, here's something you seniors ought to know about.
I understand all that. I'm just letting you all know that we would have effectively 3 town board meetings to finally put the kibosh on it and approve it before the deadline of March, because we sometimes delay things because we know that they're in the future. So that's it. That's all I was doing.
I'd like to get the economic analysis in either July or August.
Okay.
And then the sooner we make the decision, if we did it before September, it gives Al.
Is this a local law that we need to pass to adjust the program?
I don't know.
I believe there's gonna be some options that you guys are gonna have to look over.
And that's,
I'm wondering just for notification, because if it's a local law, and so there's a longer period of time with public hearings and whatnot, that adds to how the lead in time for.
which is why you said you wanted ideally that you would want the analysis by July, is that correct?
Yeah.
I would hope that in the summer, we get definitive answer from the county, and let you make the decision. It's likely that we'll get one from them, and at least an indication from the school districts of where their mindset is, so that we could do this as early as possible. No, that's, if we set a by the end of summer deadline.
I think that sounds good. If Al's doing analysis to get to us this summer, and then we'll hear what the county legislature ends up actually doing, and then early fall.
Right.
September, maybe October, where.
Well, I think late August, early September.
And starting, getting it on the agenda.
Right.
So that if it takes 2 meetings or whatever, it's.
If we have to do a public hearing on the law, if it's a legal change, if it's more than a resolution, I don't know that we can't pass this by resolution.
I have to do a little research.
Yeah, all right, so if we can do it by resolution, it's 1 meeting. If it's local law, we gotta, as you say, take a couple of weeks.
I think it would be good to have it finalized in September or October.
Al was telling me numbers today that Don Weber said it's only gonna be a $40 million impact to us. In our total assessed values. Only. So I do think we need numbers in order to make this decision.
How will the county let us know what they're doing?
Syracuse.com.
They don't call us or email Ed or anything of that.
Don
nature?
Weber and Al work very closely.
All right, that answers it.
He'll
Thank you.
know through
Okay.
the assessment office. They work hand in glove all the time. In fact, Don sent
I
out.
was surprised by how quick the county moved on it. We plan on that until fall.
Why I'm asking the
That's what he
question.
said. He said in an email to me. Don Weber said
That's
that.
what he told me until last week when we had our assessors meeting, and he said that Brian McMahon was gonna be announcing that that's what the recommendation was gonna be.
Approximately how many residents take advantage of this program now, Al?
I've got just under 400 on it right now. We're gonna be looking at probably over 1,200, so we're gonna triple at least the number of people that are on it.
Additional 1,200 or 1,200 total? Are we going up to 1,200 or are we going to 1,600?
It's gonna be somewhere in between those 2 numbers. I can't get the numbers from the state, so I don't know how many seniors we have on the check program part of the STAR. I can just tell you what I have still in the old program.
Ask a question?
Of course. What does that mean to everyone else's taxes?
That $40 to $60 million that I was talking about, that's what the total assessed value that we pulled back off of the roll, that gets redistributed out. It's not like the STAR program where the state picks up that tab. This one goes back out to everybody else, so it's redistributed.
Cool.
That's why we have to discuss this thoroughly.
I don't believe it's gonna be a $40 million. Not gonna be. Assessed value, it won't be that much.
They're changing the way they're doing the income figures and everything. It's gonna.
I'm just telling you, it won't be a $40 million.
So if it's 39, you'll be right.
The price is right, I'm going.
All right, let's see, Jack, town newsletter.
Town newsletter, the budget committee was discussing items ways to save money. Since I'm over 2, I'm coming up with number 3 there. Number 3 is a way to save money. Got an email from Kelly Gray Smith that says the approximate savings to eliminate one printing and mailing of a newsletter is $8,900. We currently do 3 newsletters a year. If we went to 2, we would save $8,900.
I'm open to that. Believe it or not.
Hallelujah. It's about time. Print that, Jason, print that.
The best in baseball only hit 300.
Not anymore, they don't. They used to.
These days, it's really the.
They used to.
I'd like to, maybe this is for the rec department, but I think if we plan them strategically throughout the year, the 2, I think it'd be better bang for our buck.
Again, I'm open to it. I think it needs to be worked with the rec department and highways, other departments. When is the timing on the delivery? We used to give 4. And about a decade ago, we rolled back to 3 because it got expensive.
They weren't 20 pages either.
And there's 3 or 4.
Like now,
But
I know it's newsprint as opposed to cream colored paper.
But I think we could, and we can talk with the rec department, but I think you could supplement it possibly with 2 digital versions of just like some updated, like program announcements. Don't have to be the full newsletter kind of thing, but.
not everybody signed up for that, but yeah.
But we'd have to make a push, you know, for that as well.
Would it be cheaper if the rec department really felt they needed to do a mailing on something? 1 or 2 sheets. Just to mail it out is a lot less than a full newsletter and a lot less time consuming. So let's continue to talk about it.
Yeah,
I think
I'm open to.
there's variable ways we can do it where the public is still, very much, informed. Yeah. Okay.
A lot of information such as like these senior exemptions and that kind of stuff that's critical. And mailing alone, letters. If you're gonna replace the newsletter is cost effective. Because a single letter mailed across the town is $6,000-7,000. So we're talking $8,000-9,000 for a newsletter that contains a lot of information. If you start to isolate that information into different mailings, you're gonna pay $20,000 by the end of the year with 3-4 letters. So
Part of the conversation with the budget committee was put all this information, not all this information, put the new stuff that's coming out, information on the website where people could read it.
again, there's a lot of individuals that don't. Everyone gets a different source. There's a ton of people that are getting that newsletter that aren't reading. There's a ton of people that don't view things online. There's a ton of folks that get things in mail in a letter and don't read the letter. I mean, there's.
So do you want me to contact the recreation director and work on this, or someone else doing this?
Sure.
Could we explore possibly if the printing, if we're doing bulk printing anyways, and the cost isn't that much of a step increase, potentially putting them at Wegmans, where Wegmans has the free newsletter right when you walk in, but Wegmans is a community source where they have the magazine racks. And
Oh, I think we used to do that.
yeah, I think that that's a way that, or around town in established locations.
If the printing is cheaper than the mailing.
Yes.
To be able to print a couple thousand,
In Oak
tops, Wegmans, town hall.
Yeah.
Libraries.
Done. Yeah.
That's another option too.
Yes, especially if you're only going to twice a year.
Yep.
You only have to send somebody out twice to stock all those locations. But it's a matter of timing, right? The rec department has sign-up periods that are critical to them to get in the sign-ups. And so the summer, winter, fall, I think it's been, there's 3 sign-up periods, right? Right now for the rec department. They have a spring program, a fall program, and a
Yes.
summer program.
Yeah.
So
Speaking of the rec department, why can't those electronic signs flash something that says, check so-and-so for a copy of our newsletter? Might as well use the thing.
one of the things that was, not to complicate this, because I.
No.
But one of the things that was discussed in the past too is sponsorship. But in a newsletter, just like a church bulletin or whatever, you can sell programming that helps offset the cost of the printing. So that so-and-so can have different size ads inside your newsletter and that's printed. So again, we've had all these conversations before. I'm certainly open to reduction of costs. And especially on this, and we'll continue that conversation, but you can take it up with the rec department.
Okay, good. I had one last one was about trash removal from this building and the police department over to highway. Our vendor that's doing the cleaning in this building and the police department is Q's Cleaning. And they requested some help in trying to get the trash over there because they have a small little car. They don't have a pickup truck and they don't have a van. And they said when they walked around, when they did the walk around, Doug Miller had sent out a specification on this that said you do have to do the trash hauling from here down the highway. And they said when they did the walk around, they were told that they could just throw the trash in the dumpster that was out there, outside, right out there. And there was a dumpster out there for a long time because that was the company that was paying for it, was the company that was remodeling the restrooms in this facility. So that was a mistake. There was a mistake made by someone who did the walk around with them, telling them that. So we have a little bit of a situation here. Talked to Rocky about this a few times. Rocky has a van that is kind of old and decrepit. And I talked to Terry Mannion about this also. And we might possibly consider giving them one of these vans or selling one too for a small price to see if they could use it to haul the trash. So what do you, anybody have any comments on that? Thoughts about it?
That's a good idea.
When you say give, do you mean allow them to use during their time here at the town of DeWitt? Or what entails with the van?
What entails with the van, if they would drive it at night here, probably at 9 o'clock at night down the highway, dump the trash, bring them back, that would be it. They do it 5 days a week.
Can we sell surplus without going through an auction or anything? Can we just determine that it's worth such and such price?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can do whatever. Personal property is.
Then I would probably be more inclined to sell it than to loan it out or let. If anything happens to what's theirs, then it's just off our books. If we're not gonna use it again.
No, I was proposing we sell it to them for a very nominal price and not the blue book value, because the Rocky can describe better the van as the condition of it.
It's in poor condition. You know, if you auctioned it, you'd probably get maybe $2,000 or $3,000, but I don't know. It's a route you guys want to take. I mean, I don't know. What if we left it here and we transport the trash for 6 months? That'll give them a year. I mean, are they thinking of getting their own vehicle to move the trash, or? I mean, would that be a compromise?
Would you have one of your guys come down here in the morning, grab the truck?
We clean up for the garden club down here. You know what I mean? We could leave the truck down there and dispose of it, work with them for 6 months, and then would that help them out to get their own vehicle? I mean,
Yeah, sure.
you know what I mean? The way I look at it is if you're gonna sell them a vehicle, once it's gone, it's gone. How do we know they're not gonna turn around and sell it or use that on other jobs? I don't know.
Or have it break down in a month and now they're stuck.
Yeah, well,
That's what I mean. If we help them out for 6 months, that'll be a year of the contract.
I said before to Jack, if we put a vehicle here, let them throw 2-3 days worth of trash in it.
Yeah, we can transport it.
And then on Wednesday, your guy comes down and drives it down there and dumps it, and brings it back.
Compromise, I don't know.
So would that be a contract that we
Where's the
would need to
recycling?
do for leasing?
Down the highway. Yeah, there's cardboard dumpster.
And a
dumpster.
We got a fence to get in.
So as long as they're not driving it, I mean, it's no different from throwing in a dumpster or whatever.
So it's stationary for those people.
And then Rocco's guys coming in.
Yes, and I don't see a problem with that.
It's compromised. I guess they were, I'm not sure where the information came from with the walk around. I don't know. Ryan and Garrett were with them and they knew where the dumpsters were, so. But I mean, that would give them 6 months. You think that's a compromise for them, Jack, or what?
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then that gives them till February, because I think they took over in February.
Mhm.
I think we gave them by the time we bid it and let them take over.
They're doing a very good job. Several people.
I consider that 2 for 4.
What's the other one? You're not very good at math, Professor Michaelenko. Hey, how they doing with the job upstairs cleaning the place?
Much better than the old people, than the previous people.
There you go.
They actually vacuums.
And Matt Natoli has complimented him on several occasions, saying when he's here at night, sometimes cleaning, the guy that does it comes in and cleans all the things. Nobody ever did that before, so.
Yeah.
Angela has told me several times, much better.
Way better.
Okay, I'll propose that too. Thank you.
All right, the Ripken Foundation MOU, that's just on there for information. I sent that to you all. All right, the Challenger Group is in conversation with the Ripken Foundation. I was in a call with them this past week. These conversations are still ongoing. I'll keep the board apprised of this. I had Carrie come to a meeting with me, and like I say, right now, all this is informational, but it seems that good things are on the horizon.
Okay.
Okay.
What was Kerry Fusco on there for budget
Yeah,
adjustment?
we got the budget adjustments.
What is that?
42, or was it
That I-
77?
I talked with
Yeah.
Controller Fusco today, and I told her I would take care of this, but
Oh, okay.
there's some projects, as often do, they roll from 22 to 23 and sometimes to 24, so do this properly, we just have to make adjustments. The first one has to do with the Janesville DeWitt Library charging stations, and Kate, I will give you, there's lots of numbers and line adjustments, but for the charging stations, we are going to need to make a budget adjustments in the improvement lines to increase the expenditure line $75,000. And then in the grants, we need to increase the revenue line $69,700. Of which $47,700 is a DEC grant. $22,000 is contributed from the library, and the town is contributing $5,300 over that project. So the budget adjustment is increase expenditure line $75,000 and increase the grants revenue line $69,700. I'll give you the numbers, Kate, so you can.
Okay, thank you.
I should do a motion for each one.
Yep, we have a motion from Councilor Mannion, a second from Banks. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried.
Okay, the second budget adjustment is regards to the ADA bathrooms, which was budgeted in 2022. But the project didn't really start until the end of 22 and rolled into 23, so we just need to update our budget for 2023 because that's when it was actually paid. So we're going to increase the expenditure line $155,497. We're going to increase the revenue line from the grant for $133,147. And the remaining $22,350 will come out of the fund balance. So I need a motion to increase the expenditure line 155,497 and increase the revenue line 133,147 for the ADA bathrooms.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion from Councilor Mannion, a second from Karen. Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion's carried.
Third budget adjustment has to do with the property demolition of the 3 buildings in Jamesville, which I think we've been working on this for how many years now? A long time.
3, 4, 5.
out of the capital project line, we need to increase the expenditure line $165,000. And in the revenue line, we need to increase $59,000, which is coming from the Onondaga County Main Street grant.
Entertain a motion from Carrie in a second. Joe? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried. That it?
That's it. Those are the 3 adjustments.
Okay, just for everyone's information, the Marcos property or the Clemmer property, depending on what you want to refer to it as, that has not been knocked down yet, is still dependent upon National Grid showing up. The building is too close to the power lines to have that demolition occur without the National Grid
On site.
Yeah, and so we've requested their scheduling of this event and we have not received it.
I have an information question with
Yeah.
reference to that grant that we know without carrying over it. Sometimes has 3 separate parts to it. And does anything in what Jerry has just said enabled the Jamesville Fire District Commission to put in less percentage than will they have to put in more money than they did for their match?
If they want their storage facility,
So they're going to need to put in more.
there's a dollar amount that was written into the grant. And therefore, anything in excess of that dollar amount in the grant, they'll have to make up.
And by moving these budgetary items as we.
That hasn't changed the commitment that the county has made to the storage facility.
Which means the storage facility folks are going to say that by virtue of doing this doesn't mean that they have to kick in more money.
They do.
They do.
But not based on this, but not based on our budget adjustments.
No,
No, not based on
no,
our. budget.
nothing we've done here
Okay.
now affects that. budget.
That's what I wanted
Okay.
to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. No, nothing we've done has changed the budget. They have a number that was granted by Onondaga County to their storage facility. That number's been constant from day one. They just got the bids back for the actual cost of the storage facility. And those bids are a greater number than they anticipated for the cost of the facility. So any difference between the actual cost and the grant amount will have to come from the fire district.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify on their behalf that what we just did hasn't eviscerated something that's been outstanding. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board before we enter executive session?
Well, I just want to say, I'm listed on there as making the ESM report, but Chief Billadu already did a stellar job of doing that, and all I had was those writing from what he said, so I have nothing to add.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to enter executive session from Joe in a second.
You're out of here, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Good night, Jason.
I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion's carried.
Second, I put it on you.